The classroom was quiet as Professor Veltar walked to the front of the room. His long blue fingers touched the control panel, and the lights dimmed. 24 students from different worlds sat in their seats waiting to see what their teacher would show them today. This was advanced xenobiology, the hardest class at the Galactic University. Only the smartest students could take it. Veltar looked at his students. There was Kixla from the water world Aquatica. Her skin was pale blue, and she breathed through small gills on her neck. Next to her sat Zen, whose body was made of living crystal that changed colors when he was excited. In the back row, Thalwyn. From the desert planet, Aritis kept his environment suit on because the classroom was too cold for his hot weather body. Today we begin our most dangerous lesson, Professor Veltar said. His voice was calm but serious. We will study a world that the Galactic Council has marked as forbidden. A world so deadly that no civilized being should ever go there. Students looked at each other with worry. What kind of world could be that bad? Professor Veltar pressed another button. A large blue and green planet appeared in the air above their heads. It looked beautiful with white clouds swirling around it. The students relaxed a little. It did not look scary at all. This is Sol 3, the professor said. The beings who live there call it Earth. It is rated as a Class 12 death world. That is the highest danger level we have. Kixla raised her hand. Professor, it looks so pretty. Are you sure it is dangerous? Veltar smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Let me show you why it earned that rating. The image of Earth changed. They could see inside the planet. Massive chunks of rock were moving and grinding against each other deep underground. The students watched as these huge pieces crashed together with incredible force. The surface of this world is broken into moving pieces, Veltar explained. These pieces never stop moving. They push against each other and cause the ground to shake violently. Sometimes the shaking is so strong, it can destroy entire cities. Zen's crystal body turned bright red with shock. On his world of harmony, the ground never moved. Everything was stable and safe. How can anything live there? He asked. Wait, there is more, the professor said. The image changed again. Now they saw mountains that were not really mountains. There were holes in the ground that shot hot and melted rock high into the air. The melted rock fell back down and burned everything it touched. These are called volcanoes, Veltar said. The inside of this world is so hot that rock melts like water. Sometimes this melted rock bursts out of the ground. It can cover hundreds of miles and kill everything in its path. Thalwyn was sweating inside his suit even though he came from a hot desert world. This is worse than our worst heat storms, he whispered. But Professor Veltar was not done. The image changed to show Earth's weather. The students watched in horror as spinning storms bigger than most of their home cities tore across the land. They saw walls of water as tall as buildings crash into the shores. Lightning bolts that could power entire space stations shot down from dark clouds. The weather on this world is completely wild, the professor continued. Water falls from the sky in amounts that would flood most civilized worlds. Sometimes the water freezes and falls as ice chunks that can kill a person. The wind can blow so hard it picks up houses and throws them through the air. Student Yexera, from the peaceful world of Unity, could not believe what she was seeing. Professor, surely no thinking beings could survive in such conditions. This world must be empty of intelligent life. Professor Veltar's expression became very serious. That is where you are wrong. Not only does intelligent life exist on this death world, but they have spread across the entire planet. They live on every continent. They even go into the oceans. And the frozen areas at the top and bottom of their world, the classroom was completely silent. Every student was trying to understand how this could be possible. The species that lives there calls themselves humans, Veltar continued. And here's the most surprising part. They are not some kind of super strong creatures with thick armor skin. They're actually quite fragile. The professor showed them an image of a human. It was a woman named Helen Carter who lived in a place called Colorado. She looked small and soft. Her skin was thin and pink. She had no claws, no thick shell, no natural weapons at all. This is what a human looks like, Veltar said.
Ouch.
Their bones break easily. Their skin can be cut by sharp objects. They cannot survive in very hot or very cold temperatures without special clothing. They must eat food and drink water every single day, or they will die. Kixla was confused. But how do they survive on such a dangerous world if they are so weak? That is exactly what we are going to find out, Professor Veltar answered. Each of you will research a different part of human life. You will study how they live, how they think, how they have managed to not just survive, but actually control their death world. The professor walked around the room, looking at each student. I must warn you all. What you will discover about humans will challenge everything you think you know about survival, intelligence, and what it means to be civilized. These beings have done things that should be impossible. He stopped at the front of the room again. Humans have built cities that can withstand earthquakes. They have created machines that can fly through their terrible storms. They have even left their planet and traveled in the deadly vacuum of space. And they did all of this while living on a world that tries to kill them every single day. Zen's crystal body was now flashing different colors rapidly, which meant he was very excited and worried at the same time. Professor, if they can do all that on such a dangerous world, what would they be able to do on a safe world like ours? Professor Veltar nodded slowly. That is a very good question, Zen, and it is exactly why the Galactic Council has classified their world as forbidden. We are not sure we want to find out the answer to that question. The professor assigned each student their research topics. Thalwyn would study human physical abilities. Yexera would research how human minds work. Kixla would investigate their technology. Other students got topics like human society, their history, and their expansion across their world. You have 2 weeks to complete your research, Professor Veltar told them. Use the deep space observation data, the radio signals we have intercepted, and the cultural information our long-range sensors have gathered. But remember, this information is classified at the highest level. You may not share it with anyone outside this class. As the students prepared to leave, Professor Veltar added one final warning. Some of you may find the information disturbing. Humans do things that would be considered insane by any civilized species. They take risks that no rational being would take. They make choices that seem to make no sense. But somehow, these impossible choices have made them the dominant species on one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. The students filed out of the classroom, each carrying the weight of their assignment. They had thought they were just going to study another alien species. Now they realized they were about to learn about beings who had turned surviving in hell into an art form. As the last student left, Professor Veltar looked at the image of Earth still floating above his desk. He had not told his students everything. Long-range sensors had recently detected something that made the Galactic Council very nervous. The humans were building ships, big ships, ships that looked like they were designed to travel between stars. The professor turned off the hologram and walked to the window. Somewhere out there in the darkness of space, a species of Deathworld survivors was getting ready to meet the galaxy. Nobody knew if that was a good thing or the most terrifying thing that could possibly happen. 2 weeks had passed since Professor Veltar gave his students their research assignments. Today was the day they would share what they had learned about humans. The classroom felt different now. There was tension in the air that had not been there before. Thalwyn from the desert world Aridus stood at the front of the room. His hands were shaking slightly as he prepared to give his presentation about human physical abilities. He had been confident when he started his research. Surely these soft, weak humans would be easy to understand. He was not so sure. Fellow students, Thalwyn began, his voice uncertain. I have spent 2 weeks studying what humans can do with their bodies that I found goes against everything we know about intelligent life. He pressed a button, and an image appeared in the air. It showed a human man standing at the bottom of a huge mountain. The mountain was covered in snow and ice. It looked impossible to climb. This is a human named Jake Martinez, Thalwyn said. He climbs mountains like this one for fun, not because he has to, not because there is anything valuable at the top. He does it because he enjoys it. The alien students looked at each other with confusion. Kixla from the water world raised her hand. But surely he uses some kind of machine to get to the top. Tailwind shook his head. No, he uses only his hands and feet, carries everything he needs on his back. Takes him days to reach the top. He sleeps on the side of the mountain in freezing temperatures that would kill most of us in minutes. The image changed to show Jake actually climbing. Students watched in horror as the human pulled himself up the rock face, using only small cracks and tiny ledges. One slip would mean death from a fall of thousands of feet. But that is not the worst part, Thalwyn continued. Humans do much more dangerous things than this. The next image made several students gasp out loud. It showed a human woman jumping. Out of an aircraft high in the sky, she was falling toward the ground at incredible speed, with only a piece of fabric to slow her down. This is Lisa Johnson, Thalwyn explained. She throws herself out of flying machines on purpose. Humans call this skydiving. They do it for entertainment. Lisa's done this over 300 times. Student Zen's crystal body turned bright orange with shock. That is suicide. Why would any thinking being do such a thing? I asked the same question, Thalwyn replied. But the data shows that humans regularly put themselves in deadly danger for something they call fun. They surf on waves that could crush buildings. They race vehicles at speeds that would turn them into liquid if they crashed. They jump off bridges with only elastic ropes tied to their feet. The alien students were becoming more and more disturbed. This was not the behavior of any civilized species they knew. Thalwyn showed them more images. Humans swimming with giant sea creatures that had rows of sharp teeth. Humans running with large bulls that had dangerous horns. Humans skiing down mountains at speeds that seemed impossible to control. Perhaps the most shocking thing is human endurance, Thalwyn said. On my world, if we need to travel long distances, we use vehicles. Humans often choose to travel using only their legs. He showed them footage of something called a marathon. Thousands of humans were running together through city streets. They ran for over 26 miles without stopping. As human as Kevin. Brown Thalwyn pointed to one runner. He completed this race while recovering from a broken bone in his leg. On any civilized world, such an injury would require months of rest. Kevin was running on it after just a few weeks. The image changed to show humans doing even more impossible things. A woman lifted weights that were heavier than most alien students. A man swam across entire lakes without any help. Children played games that would be considered military training on other worlds. But the most disturbing discovery, Thalwyn continued, is how humans deal with serious injuries. He showed medical data that made the alien students feel sick. Humans, who had lost arms and legs, but continued to live normal lives. Humans who had their organs replaced with mechanical parts and went back to work the next week. Humans who survived injuries that should have killed them instantly. This human is Danny Rodriguez, Thalwyn said, showing a picture of a man with scars covering his arms. He was trapped under a collapsed building during an earthquake. Instead of waiting for help, he chewed through his own arm to escape. He then walked 5 miles to get medical help. Several students made sounds of disgust and horror. This was beyond anything they could imagine. Here is Rachel Cooper, Thalwyn continued. She was attacked by one of Earth's large predators called a bear. The bear broke several of her bones and tore open her skin. Rachel fought the bear with her bare hands until it ran away. She then walked 3 miles through a forest to reach safety. The presentation showed more examples of human survival. People who lived through lightning strikes. Humans who fell from great heights and walked away. Individuals who survived in frozen wilderness for weeks with no food. What I cannot understand, Thalwyn said, is that humans seem to get stronger when things get worse. The more dangerous their situation, the more capable they become. He showed them security footage from what humans called a disaster zone. The building was on fire, and people were trapped inside. Instead of running away from the danger, other humans ran toward it. They carried people out of the burning building, even though they could have died themselves. This is Tony Williams. Thalwyn pointed to a human running into the flames. He is not a professional rescuer. He is just an ordinary human who was walking by when he saw people in trouble. He went into that fire 6 times to save strangers. 6 times. The alien students sat in stunned silence. This went against every survival instinct they understood. Perhaps most frightening of all, Thalwyn said, is that humans consider all of this normal behavior. Their children learn these activities in school. Their entertainment media celebrates people who take extreme risks. What we would call nightmare scenarios, they call adventure stories. He showed them human movies and books, stories about people fighting monsters, surviving in impossible conditions, and overcoming deadly challenges. The humans who consumed this entertainment were not horrified by it. They enjoyed it. I found records of human competitions, Thalwyn continued. They compete to see who can endure the most pain, who can survive the longest in harsh conditions, and who can perform the most dangerous stunts. They give prizes to the winners. The final image showed a human child, no more than 10 years old, learning to rock climb on a wall that would challenge adult aliens. The child was laughing and seemed to be having fun. In conclusion, Thalwyn said, his voice barely above a whisper, humans are not just surviving their death world, they're using it to make themselves stronger. Every generation of humans is more capable than the last because they are constantly testing themselves against impossible challenges. He looked around the room at his fellow students. We assume that intelligent life would avoid danger and seek safety. Humans do the opposite. They seek out danger because it makes them better at surviving. Professor Veltar nodded slowly. Thank you, Thalwyn. Your research confirms what the Galactic Council fears most. Humans do not just live with danger. They are shaped by it, strengthened by it, and driven to overcome it. The professor looked at his other students. Who will present next? But nobody volunteered. They were all too shocked by what they had just learned. Somewhere in the galaxy was a species that treated surviving hell as a hobby. According to their intercepted radio signals, these humans were building spaceships. The thought of what such beings might do. When they reached the stars, terrified every alien in that classroom. The next day, the classroom was even quieter than before. Thalwyn's presentation about human physical abilities had left everyone disturbed. Now it was time for the next student to share what they had learned. Yexara from the peaceful world of Unity walked slowly to the front of the room. Her people were known for their calm, logical thinking. They made all decisions together after careful discussion. Violence was unknown on her world. Everyone agreed on everything before taking action, but studying human minds had shaken her deeply. She had discovered things that made no sense to any civilized being. My fellow students, Yexara began, her voice trembling slightly. I have researched how human brains work. What I found is more frightening than their physical abilities. Human minds are filled with chaos, yet somehow this chaos makes them stronger. She activated the holographic display. Brain scans of humans appeared in the air, showing electrical activity lighting up different areas in wild patterns. This is what the inside of a human mind looks like, Yexar explained. On my world, our thoughts are organized and peaceful. We think in straight lines from problem to solution. But human minds are completely different. The display showed comparison scans. Unity minds showed calm, steady patterns. Human minds looked like storms of electrical activity with signals, jumping randomly between different areas. Humans have something called emotions, Yexara continued. These are chemical reactions in their brains that cause them to feel things like anger, fear, love, and sadness. These emotions make them do things that make no logical sense. Student Kixla raised her hand. But surely emotions would make them weaker. How can random feelings help with survival? Yexara looked troubled. That is what I thought too. But the data shows the opposite. Emotions actually make humans more capable, not less. She showed them video footage of humans in dangerous situations. A burning building appeared on the screen. Most rational beings would calculate the risks and stay away. But the humans were different. Watch this human named Carol Bennett, Yexara said, pointing to a woman running toward the fire. Her child is trapped inside. Logic says she should wait for professional help. The building could collapse at any moment, but her emotion called. Love makes her ignore all logic. Students watched in amazement as Carol ran into the burning building. She came out carrying a small human child. Both were alive. The emotion of love gave her strength she should not have had, Yexora explained. It made her ignore pain, fear, and rational thinking. She did something impossible because she felt something stronger than logic. The next example was even more disturbing. It showed humans in a war zone. Explosions were going off around them. But some humans were running toward the danger instead of away from it. "This is Lieutenant Mike Palmer," Yexura said. His fellow soldiers were wounded and trapped. Logic said he should retreat and save himself. But his emotions of loyalty and duty made him charge into enemy fire to rescue them. The alien students watched in horror as Mike ran across open ground while weapons fired at him. He reached his wounded comrades and carried them to safety one by one. Any rational being would have calculated that this was suicide. He saved 4 lives that day. Yexura continued. When asked why he did it, he said he could not live with himself if he left them behind. This makes no sense to logical minds, but it makes perfect sense to humans. She showed them more examples. Humans jumping into freezing water to save drowning. Strangers. Humans giving up their own food to feed hungry children they did not even know. Humans sacrificing their lives to protect others. The most confusing emotion is something humans call sacrifice, Yexura said. They will voluntarily give up their own lives for abstract concepts like honor, duty, or protecting others. No logical being would make such a choice. The display showed a human named David Chen who had thrown himself on top of an explosive device to save his friends. He died, but his action saved 20 other lives. David had a family at home, Yexura explained. He had children who needed him. Logic said he should have run away and saved himself. But his emotion of loyalty to his friends was stronger than his logic of self-preservation. Student Zen's crystal body was flashing rapid colors of confusion, but this makes no sense. Why would evolution create minds that choose death over survival? Yexura nodded. I wondered the same thing. But then I studied human history. These seemingly irrational choices have actually helped humans survive as a species. She showed them historical data. Humans who had sacrificed themselves to save others had become heroes. Their stories inspired other humans to be brave and selfless. Entire societies had become stronger because of these individual sacrifices. When one human shows courage, it makes other humans braver, Yexura explained. When one human helps others, it makes their whole community stronger. Their irrational choices create rational benefits for their species. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. Yexura showed them how humans made decisions. Galactic species think carefully before acting, she said. We gather information, discuss options, and choose the safest path. Humans do something they call following their gut instincts. The display showed humans making split-second decisions with incomplete information. Soldiers in combat choosing which direction to move without time to think. Doctors deciding how to treat patients in emergency situations. Pilots making course corrections during storms. Watch this pilot named Jenny Roberts, Yexura said. Her aircraft is caught in a severe storm. She has seconds to decide which way to turn. She cannot calculate all the variables in time, so she makes a choice based on feeling. The students watched as Jenny guided her aircraft through the storm. Using pure instinct? Logical analysis would have been too slow. Her emotional decision-making saved everyone on board. The strangest part, Yexura continued, is that these instinct-based decisions are often better than logical ones. Humans have something they call intuition. They can sense the right answer without knowing why. She showed them business leaders, making successful decisions based on hunches. Scientists making breakthrough discoveries by following random thoughts. Artists creating beautiful works by trusting their feelings instead of following rules. Human creativity comes from their chaotic minds, Yexura explained. While we innovate through careful research, humans make discoveries by accident, by trying impossible things, and by thinking in ways that seem completely random. The display showed human inventions that had changed their world. Most had been created not through logical research, but through wild experimentation and crazy ideas that somehow worked. They even have a saying, Yexura said. Think outside the box. This means deliberately ignoring logical boundaries and considering impossible options. What we would call insanity, they call innovation. The final part of her presentation was the most frightening. She showed them how humans dealt with fear. Most intelligent species avoid things that scare them, Yexura said. Humans do the opposite. Deliberately face their fears to become Stronger. She showed them humans learning to overcome phobias by exposing themselves to what frightened them. Humans who were afraid of heights learning to climb mountains. Humans who feared water learning to dive into the ocean. They have turned fear into a tool for improvement, Yexara explained. Instead of avoiding what scares them, they use fear to identify what they need to work on. The classroom was completely silent. Every alien student was trying to process what they had heard. In conclusion, Yexara said, her voice barely audible, human minds are not broken or primitive. They are designed for survival in ways we cannot understand. Their emotions, their instincts, and their seemingly irrational choices all serve to make them more adaptable and stronger. She looked around the room at her fellow students. We think in straight lines and make safe choices. Humans think in spirals and make dangerous choices. But their dangerous choices have made them the dominant species on their death world. Professor Veltar stood up slowly. Thank you, Yexara. Your research reveals perhaps the most important truth about humans. They are not just physically tough. Their minds are designed to thrive in chaos and uncertainty. He looked at his students. This explains why humans can survive their death world. Their brains are built for handling impossible situations. They make their best decisions under pressure, show their greatest strength in crisis, and become more capable when things get worse. As the students filed out of the classroom, each one carried a new understanding. Humans were not just strong in body. They were strong in mind, heart, and spirit. And that combination made them unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The third week of presentations had arrived. The classroom felt heavy with tension. Each day brought new discoveries about humans that challenged everything the alien students thought they knew about intelligent life. Today, it was Noxel's turn. To present No came from the machine world of precision. His people built everything according to exact calculations and safety standards. Nothing was left to chance. Every structure was designed to last for thousands of years with perfect maintenance. Risk was eliminated through careful planning, but studying human technology and expansion had left Noxel deeply shaken. His metallic hands trembled as he prepared his presentation. Fellow students, Noxel began, his voice uncertain. Spent 3 weeks studying human technology and how they have spread across their world. What I discovered goes against every principle of intelligent engineering and safe expansion that we know. He activated the holographic display. An image of a massive human city appeared floating above their heads. Tall buildings reached impossible heights into the sky. This is a human city called New York, Noxel explained. Look at how high their buildings reach. According to our engineering standards, structures this tall should collapse under their own weight, especially on a world with frequent earthquakes. The alien students stared at the towering structures. On their worlds, buildings were built low and strong to ensure safety. These human buildings looked like they were challenging the sky itself. But the humans did not just build tall, Noxel continued. They built these structures knowing their world would try to destroy them. The image changed to show the same city during an earthquake. The students watched in amazement as the tall buildings swayed back and forth like trees in wind, but did not fall down. Human engineers do not build to avoid earthquakes, Noxel said. They build to survive earthquakes. Their structures are designed to bend without breaking. This goes against every principle of safe construction we know. Student Kixla from the water world raised her hand. But surely they stay in safe areas. They must avoid the most dangerous parts of their world. Noxel shook his head sadly. That is what I thought too. But humans do the exact opposite. They build cities in the most dangerous places on their planet. The display showed different human settlements. City built on top of an active volcano. Coastal cities directly in the path of massive storms. Desert cities in places where water was almost impossible to find. This is San Francisco, Noxel said, pointing to a beautiful city by the ocean. It sits directly on top of one of the most dangerous earthquake zones on their planet. Logic says no intelligent being would build there. But humans built one of their most important cities there. The image changed to show the aftermath of a major earthquake in San Francisco. Buildings had collapsed and fires burned everywhere. But instead of abandoning the city, humans had rebuilt it even bigger and stronger. When their cities are destroyed by natural disasters, humans do not move to safer locations, Noxel explained. They rebuild in the same dangerous spot and make it better than before. He showed them more examples. New Orleans, a city that floods regularly but is constantly rebuilt. Tokyo, a massive city in an earthquake zone. Miami, a coastal city that gets hit by hurricanes every year. Perhaps most shocking is what humans do when they run out of safe land, Noxel continued. They create new land. The display showed something that made the alien students gasp. Humans had built an entire city floating on water. Venice looked impossible, with buildings rising directly from the ocean. Humans saw that the ocean was in their way, so they decided to live on top of it, Noxel said. They drove massive poles deep into the ocean floor and built a city that floats. When the water tries to sink it, they repair it and keep living there. Student Zen's crystal body was flashing bright red with shock. That is insane. Why not? Just live on solid ground? Because humans do not let their environment control them? Noxel replied. They control their environment instead. The presentation showed human achievements that defied logic. Tunnels carved through solid mountains that would take civilized species centuries to plan safely. Bridges spanning huge valleys that should have been impossible to build. Dams that held back entire rivers and lakes. This is the Hoover Dam, Noxel said, showing a massive concrete wall. Humans looked at a powerful river and decided to stop it from flowing. They built this structure to control one of nature's most destructive forces. The amount of water being held back could flood entire regions if released. The alien students could not believe what they were seeing. Controlling rivers was something that even advanced civilizations avoided because of the massive risks involved. But the most terrifying discovery, Noxel continued, is what humans do when their own planet becomes too small for them. The image changed to show something floating in the darkness of space above Earth. It was a structure made of metal and glass, spinning slowly against the stars. This is the International Space Station, Noxel said. Humans built a permanent home in the vacuum of space. They lived there for months at a time, orbiting their death world at incredible speeds. The classroom was completely silent. Living in space was considered almost impossible, even with the most advanced technology. The risks were enormous. Yet humans had done it with relatively primitive equipment. The space station travels at over 17,000 miles per hour, Noxel explained. One small piece of space debris could destroy it instantly. The humans living inside are constantly surrounded by deadly radiation and the vacuum that kills instantly. Yet they consider this routine. He showed them footage of humans floating inside the space station, calmly conducting experiments and eating meals as if they were safely on the ground. They seemed completely comfortable in an environment that would terrify most galactic species. Here is astronaut Lisa Murphy, Noxel said, pointing to a human woman floating in zero gravity. She has spent over a year living in space. About the dangers, she says the view of Earth makes all the risks worth it. The presentation revealed more impossible human achievements. Robots they had sent to explore other planets in their solar system. Probes that had traveled beyond their sun's influence into deep space. Plans to establish permanent colonies on Mars. Mars is even more hostile than Earth, Noxel explained, showing images of the red planet. It has almost no atmosphere, deadly radiation levels, and temperatures that would freeze most life instantly. Humans want to go there not to visit, but to live there permanently. The display showed human plans for Mars colonies. Massive domed cities, underground facilities, and terraforming projects that would take thousands of years to complete. Are not content with conquering their death world, Noxel said. They want to conquer other death worlds too. But the most disturbing part was how humans solved engineering problems. While galactic species spent years calculating every detail, to ensure safety, humans used trial and error. Watch this rocket launch, Noxel said, showing a massive human spacecraft lifting off from Earth. The rocket exploded just seconds after takeoff. The alien students expected this to be a tragedy that would end human space exploration. Instead, they saw something shocking. The humans studied what went wrong, made changes, and tried again the next month, Noxel explained. They treat failures as learning experiences rather than reasons to give up. He showed them dozens of examples. Human aircraft crashing during early flight tests, leading to better designs. Human vehicles failing during races, leading to improved safety features. Human buildings collapsing during earthquakes, leading to better construction methods. Deliberately test their technology to the point of failure, Knoxville said. They push everything beyond its limits to find out what breaks first. Then they fix it and push even harder. The presentation showed human transportation that prioritized speed over safety, vehicles that could travel hundreds of miles per hour on roads with other vehicles, aircraft that flew through storms that would ground any sensible species. This is Captain Roy Peterson, Knoxville said, showing a human pilot. He flies cargo planes through hurricanes because it is faster than going around them. When asked about the risks, he says, the danger makes the job more interesting. The final images showed human expansion philosophy. Instead of finding planets similar to their home world, humans were actively seeking out the most challenging environments they could find. They have identified thousands of worlds they want to explore, Knoxville concluded. Not the safe, comfortable worlds that we would choose. They are most interested in planets with extreme weather, dangerous wildlife, and hostile conditions. He looked around the room at his fellow students. Humans do not expand to find easier lives. They expand to find new challenges. Their technology is not designed for comfort and safety. It is designed to help them survive in places where nothing should be able to live. Professor Veltar stood up slowly. The weight of what they were learning about humans seemed to grow, heavier each day. Thank you, Knoxville, the professor said. Your research confirms our worst fears. Humans do not just survive their death world. They have learned to thrive in hostile environments and actively seek out new ones to conquer. The fourth week had arrived. This was the final day of presentations about humans. The classroom felt different now. But it started as an academic exercise had become something much more serious. The alien students no longer looked curious. They looked frightened. Professor Veltar stood at the front of the room. But he did not look like the confident teacher who had started this lesson a month ago. The weight of what they had discovered about humans had changed him too. Today we'll hear our final presentations, Professor Veltar said quietly. Then we must discuss what all of this means for our galaxy. Student Killmouth from the aquatic world of Deep Current slowly moved to the front of the room. Her research topic had been human population and evolution. She had thought it would be the easiest assignment. How wrong she had been. My fellow students, Killmouth began, her voice shaking. I have been studying how human populations grow and change over time. What I discovered is the most terrifying thing of all. Humans are not finished evolving. They are still changing, and they are getting more dangerous. She activated the holographic display. Charts and graphs appeared showing human population growth over thousands of years. Most species reach a stable population level and stay there, Killmouth explained. But humans keep growing in number, even though their world regularly tries to kill them through disasters, diseases, and climate changes. The display showed how human numbers had grown from millions to billions in just a few thousand years. Despite wars, plagues, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions, their population kept increasing. Every time their world kills large numbers of humans, the survivors adapt and become stronger, Killmouth continued. Diseases that kill millions lead to humans with better immune systems. Natural disasters that destroy cities lead to humans, who build better shelters. They use every catastrophe as a chance to improve. Student Kixler raised her hand with a trembling voice. But surely there must be limits. They cannot keep growing forever on one world. Killmouth's expression became even more worried. That is what I thought too, but humans have already solved that problem. They are actively working to spread to other worlds, not because they have to, but because they want to. The display showed human space programs. Rockets being built that could carry thousands of people to other planets. Plans for colonies that could support millions of humans on worlds that had never known life. They call it the backup plan, Killmouth said. Humans want to make sure their species can survive even if Earth is completely destroyed. So they are preparing to live on dozens of different worlds at the same time. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. Kilmoth showed them data about how humans were changing physically and mentally. Recent generations of humans show increased resistance to diseases that killed their ancestors, she explained. Their children are taller, stronger, and smarter than their parents were. Their brains are developing new capabilities. The display showed brain scans comparing humans from different time periods. Modern human brains were more active and complex than those from just a few hundred years ago. They are evolving faster than any species we have ever studied, Kilmouth said. Changes that should take millions of years are happening in thousands of years. The changes are all making them more capable of survival. She showed them examples of human children who could do things that would have been impossible for earlier generations, children who could learn multiple languages effortlessly, young humans who could solve complex problems that would challenge adult aliens. This human child is Amy Peterson, Kilmoth said, showing an image of a small human girl. She's only 8 years old. But she can already speak 5 different languages and understands mathematics that we do not teach our students until they are much older. The alien students stared at the innocent-looking child. To them, she looked harmless. But they were beginning to understand that human appearances could be very deceiving. The most frightening part, Kilmoth continued, is that humans are deliberately trying to improve themselves even faster. They call it genetic engineering and cybernetic enhancement. The display showed human scientists working to modify their own DNA and install mechanical parts in their bodies. They were not content to wait for natural evolution. They wanted to control and speed up the process. Some humans are already stronger than normal. Others have computer chips in their brains that make them smarter. They are turning themselves into something beyond what nature created. Professor Veltar stepped forward. Thank you, Kilmoth. Now I will share what our deep space monitoring stations have discovered. The professor activated a new display. It showed the edge of human space around Earth, but there were new signals. Coming from that area, signals that had not been there before. 3 months ago, our sensors detected unusual energy readings from the human solar system, Professor Veltar said. At first we thought it was just more of their space exploration. But careful analysis has revealed something much more significant. The display showed massive construction projects in space around Earth. Humans were building structures larger than anything they had ever attempted before. These appeared to be shipyards, the professor continued. Facilities for building spacecraft much larger than anything humans have ever created. And the energy signatures suggest they are experimenting with faster-than-light propulsion. The classroom became deadly quiet. Every alien student understood what this meant. Humans were preparing to leave their solar system and explore the galaxy. Based on their rate of progress, we estimate that humans will achieve faster than light. Travel within the next 50 to 100 years, Professor Veltar said. When that happens, they will begin spreading throughout the galaxy. Student Yexera from Unity raised her hand. Professor, what does the Galactic Council plan to do about this? Professor Veltar looked very old and tired. That is exactly what we must discuss now. We have learned that humans are unlike any species we have ever encountered. They are physically tough, mentally resilient, technologically innovative, and evolutionarily adaptable. They view danger as opportunity and treat impossible challenges as entertainment. He walked around the room, looking at each student. The question we must answer is this. What happens when such a species joins galactic civilization? The students began to discuss among themselves in worried whispers. Some thought humans should be contained on their world. Others wondered if that would even be possible. Consider what we have learned, Professor Veltar said. Humans have conquered their death world using primitive technology and chaotic thinking. What could they accomplish with access to galactic technology and knowledge? Student Zen's crystal body was flashing anxious colors. They could take over everything. Their way of thinking and acting could spread to other species. Or, said Student Thalwin, they could help other species become stronger. Maybe we have become too comfortable and safe. Maybe we need some of their ability to handle challenges. The debate continued for hours. Some students feared that humans would bring violence and chaos to the peaceful galaxy. Others wondered if humans might be exactly what the galaxy needed to face unknown future challenges. "There is one more thing you should know," Professor Veltar said finally. "Our monitoring stations have intercepted some human radio transmissions. Messages between their spacecraft and their home world." He played an audio recording. The students heard human voices speaking in their strange language. The translation appeared as text in the air. "Mission Control, this is Explorer 7. We have successfully tested the new propulsion system. Faster than light travel is now possible. We are ready to begin deep space exploration. Copy Explorer 7. You are authorized to begin the search for other intelligent life. Remember, we go in peace, but we are prepared for anything we might find." The transmission ended. The classroom was completely silent. "The humans are coming," Professor Veltar said quietly. "They know other intelligent life exists in the galaxy, and they are actively searching for us. Our choice is not whether to make contact with them. Our choice is how to prepare for when they find us." He looked at his students one final time. "Based on everything we have learned, do we greet them as friends, potential allies, or as the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known?" As the students filed out of the classroom, each carried the knowledge that would soon change everything. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the beings who had turned surviving hell into an art form were building ships to explore the stars. The galaxy would never be the same again, and in a small town on Earth, 18-year-old Amy Peterson played with her pet dog, completely unaware that her innocent face had appeared in an alien classroom as an example of humanity's terrifying potential. The humans were coming. And nobody knew if that was the best thing or the worst thing that could happen to the galaxy.